You are, we can hear you now.
Yeah, you're on now. Mind you, I think I preferred the other way, but there again.
Oh, I think that's a bit unkind.
Yeah,
What?
very, very.
No, I'm talking about the glare from the window, Paul.
Right.
Okay, Chair, you're now live.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'd like to welcome everyone to this virtual meeting of the Charitable Trust Board. My name is Councillor Paul Crossley and I'm Chair of the Board. And I'll now call out the names of the other members of the Board to confirm that they are present. Councillor Rob Appleyard.
Present.
Councillor Paul Myers.
Present.
Councillor Mark Roper. Not here yet. Councillor Joanna Wright.
Present.
Our independent member, Graham Page.
He did indicate so, not very loud though.
There we are, thank you. Right.
Sorry, I'll shout.
Can I remind everyone to keep background noises to a minimum, to only speak one person at a time and not to speak over others. And when you're not speaking, please mute your microphones when not speaking. Please indicate if you wish to speak by using the chat facility on Zoom by typing MIS, may I speak, and I will call everyone in turn. Apologies for absence. Marie, do we have any apologies for absence and or substitutions?
Sorry. Just from Mandy Bishop, who was on leave, so unable to attend. She's not actually a member, she's an officer.
Okay, thank you very much. Declarations of interest. Does anyone have any disclosable interests together with the nature of such interest? No, I can't see anyone doing that. Okay. Items of urgent business agreed by the chairman. There are no items of urgent business. Items from the public. Mr. Derek Swift has submitted a question to the board and a copy of the questions and responses has been circulated. Mr. Swift is unfortunately unable to join us this afternoon, and so we can't ask him any questions of those responses or ask him for comment. Minutes of the previous meeting, 29th of January. Can someone confirm that they are a true record, please?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Can I have that seconded?
Yes.
Okay, seconded by Joe. Thank you very much. Can we have a vote to confirm that they are a true record? Please put your hand up and I will just go through and just check everyone. Participants. Rob Appleyard. Oh, sorry. I can't see how I can see all. More. How do I do that? Invite.
If I can help you, Chair.
Right, you've got it. Yeah, I've got you, Rob.
Paul is showing.
Oh, there we are. I've got everyone now. So got Councillor Paul Myers. Yes. Councillor Paul Crossley. Yes. Graham Page. Have you got your hand up or not? No. Okay. So that's a majority then, with everyone supporting that except Graham Page. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, of the inability because I wasn't at the last meeting. So
okay, thank you very much. We will make a note of that. So you weren't at the previous meeting. Thank you very much. Right, first item is the Alice Park Trust update. And can I invite Councillor Rob Appleyard to give a verbal update to include progress on the 10-year plan for the Trust to become financially sustainable and on the community engagement model for the Trust. And then after that, we'll have question and answers. So Councillor Rob Appleyard.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Paul. In line with the response to Mr. Swift, I indicated there had been some activities putting in place some building blocks for discussions about a 10-year plan. The idea is to increase the stability of the income for the park, and over a period of time, as that increases, the reliance of the council making any contribution will diminish. Now, this obviously needs further discussion with committee members, but that's a general concept. And in line with that objective, we're about to finalise a new lease for the cafe. That's just been worked up by our legal people at the moment. Initial informal discussions indicate that that's going to be a successful conclusion. And over the period of the summer, there's been discussions with commercial users of the park, and I indicate those will be people that are using the park for commercial activities where coin is changing hands. And through those conversations, we are entering into localised agreements that they're making a small contribution towards the upkeep of the park, in line with the adopted charging policy that the committee took some while ago. The idea of that is to build the relationship between those users and the park, and drive towards it being a recognised acceptance that there is a need for us to actually raise money for the park, etc. And since they're making money for it, they're making a small contribution. In terms of the public engagement model, we took on board what Councillor Myers indicated last time. There hasn't been any work on that one. COVID's obviously has made it slightly difficult. It hasn't necessarily been on the radar as yet. If any other information about the park, I'm sure people would be pleased to know that the skate park is coming to conclusion. Sorry, scatty dogs. The build is pretty much there. I think we're now waiting for ROSPA to sign off for the safety elements of it, and also for the installation of some additional fencing, which will ensure that the safety between the sand pit and the skate park is robust and meets all the needs to protect all users. My dogs have now gone quiet, and so will I, unless there's any questions.
Right, so do we have any questions for Rob on his presentation?
Put your sound on, Graham.
Thank you, Rob. Just one on the commercial users. Can I first say that's a great initiative, Rob, and I think it's long overdue. But my problem with it is, how is it going to be sort of enforced? Because, you know, I see as I walk around a lot of groups, but I don't know whether all these groups know or expect to be registered as commercial activities, and some long-standing commercial users who have paid up are slightly resentful of this. So I'm just wondering how we can sort of make sure that everybody's brought into the net.
I think you're quite right, Graham. I mean, historically, this has not been a focus of the management of the park, and up till recently, people have used the park as they wanted, and it will take time to make that change. Part of it will be affected by the new signed board that I believe is ready to be positioned. And then we'll have something notified on there. It is down to us, and obviously yourself, if you're walking around the park regularly, to maybe if you can identify people, and if you're not comfortable with addressing those people directly, I'm quite happy to take the information and we can email them, if we get the email, directly from the Alice Park Bookings email address, and just gently start that conversation going. We go in cold, but obviously it's done in a very friendly manner and everything like this. But some of the activities in there, they're not necessarily doing it for money. They're doing it as part of what they do in the community and everything like that. So we need to identify that. It will take time for that concept to develop, but we've started that ball rolling, and as of the moment, out of the, I think about 12, 15 users or groups, only one has actually resisted the contact on there. But yeah, we can manage that. We can manage that.
Okay, thanks very much. Any further questions for Rob? Rob, could you just give us an update on when the tennis court work is going to start that the council is doing?
I understand, and Michael will be in a better position to indicate that. We have, I think our last action as a committee, we agreed that the council will manage the legal elements of the lease between the LTA and us. We are part of I think it's a 3-site project, and as far as I know now, we are very, very much beholden to when the LTA actually want to start that. There's nothing from the Alice Park Committee's point of view that's holding it up. We've agreed to everything that we can, and we do look forward to it. But I can find that information out and report it back to the Charitable Trust Board at the meeting.
All right, thank you. Do we have any further questions for Rob on the charts?
Okay.
I've got no further questions, so I propose that we just
Sorry,
note...
just one very quick one.
Yeah, sure, go on.
Rob made reference to the notice board. If Rob and Joanna and Paul can indicate where X marks the spot where the notice board is going to go up, then I'll progress that one. But I haven't.
I'm able to do that. By chance, I met with Joanna at the park on another matter, and we did discuss it, and we've identified 2 locations which we think are suitable.
If you let me know, then I'll facilitate the contact.
Yeah, I'll pick that up with you afterwards, Graham. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And can I just say thank you for your work on bringing that all together.
Okay, I propose that we note that report. Is that acceptable to everyone? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Right, next one is a paper that Graham Page submitted to us all about a week ago. So I'd like to invite Graham to speak to his paper that he submitted, which is on the administrative issues of Alice Park. Unmute yourself, please, Graham.
Yep. Yes, thank you, Chair. It's only really picking up on some comments that the Charities Commission picked up about regulatory advice and conflicts of interest. It was page 3 of the letter, which was produced by Nia Jones when she approved the skate park. And it's just one or two things that have happened in sort of the running of the skate park. For example, I notice that occasionally notices appear in the name of the council in various areas of the skate park, referring to certain things. In the paper, I just want the clarification that the skate, not the skate park, the whole park, minus the leased areas, is in fact in the management of the trust and not the council. And that needs to be re-emphasised. And if the council want to do things, then in fact it should go through the trust, and things should be put up in the name of the trust. That's just the first point on it.
Can I stop you there, please, Graham? Let's take them point by point. I think that's a very fair point about stuff that should be, if it's in the park, it should be in the park's name. I think this is probably just a legacy of the fact that this piece of work started 8 years ago under the council. I wonder if I can ask Michael Hewitt just to respond from the legal point of view to Graham's point there, please.
It's correct to say that the trust is a separate legal entity, and therefore it would be appropriate for notices to be in the name of the Alice Park Trust. I think it is just a matter of practice that the Park Service, when they're doing general things, just in a sense produce the one for the Alice Park Trust in their name rather than in the name of the Alice Park Trust. And you know, that's something which perhaps needs to be taken up with the Park Service so that they do make the appropriate changes so that it is clear it is on behalf of the separate legal entity, the Alice Park Trust.
The reason I asked that is a notice came up at the edge of the playground, sort of saying that no food and drink should be consumed in children's playground, and it appeared just suddenly, and of course, you know, the tradition has been that in fact that food and drink is allowed in the playground, and you know, if we're going to have changes, if we're going to have things put in that in fact in essence change the policy, that you know, that should be cleared by the trust before you know, before the council put it up. That's the point I'm making.
I think that's a good point, Graham. What I'll do is I'll raise that in my next meeting with Parks, and we'll see if we can make sure that's corrected going forward.
Can I just pick up on just without elongating the conversation, because I think we know where we are on that one, and it is a legacy element of it, and we do actually have a service level agreement with the council on various aspects of management, and I can quite understand to actually produce a different notice just for the park could be potentially expensive and not always get done, so anything like that. But we are addressing the identity of the Alice Park Trust, because the wording on the new notice boards strongly indicate that the Alice Park Trust and everything like that. And what I will pick up with the query about the notice that goes up about the food and the drink, I'm not aware of any of the other trust committee members, but I wasn't aware that that was a concern for you, Graham. And if you'd brought it up with us, and we may have been able to obviously highlight that somehow. But there will always be that crossover, especially in emergencies like with the COVID pieces and everything like that. It was a case that the council will have taken that responsibility of it. I just really want to head one other thing off, and I think it came up in the comments of that. I believe that committee members are fully aware of their responsibilities to put the trust or the park first when they're dealing with Alice Park Trust matters on that one. And it is a confusion, and there will always be that perception of crossover, because we do have other hats on anything like this.
Which leads me to my second point. It needs to be, you know, this clarity of what is wearing a trustee hat as opposed to a council member hat. And I have slight difficulties in given the composition of the management subcommittee is how that can effectively run, because you've got a quorum of 3 members, and the only 3 people that can be members of the management subcommittee are in fact 3 councillors. So if in fact an issue arises which in fact is part of council policy, and council members who are trustees recognise that and sort of excuse themselves from dealing with that issue, the subcommittee can't progress.
I think Michael.
You understand?
I think Michael has dealt with that issue for us of late, where I think there's a clear identity that the trustee of the park is in fact the council. We are not trustees being on the committee, and the council have appointed 3 of their members onto that committee, work basically carrying out the needs of the park on the council's behalf as a trustee. And I believe that legally there can't be an inclusion of a non-member in that decision-making process. Yeah. And that's the way I understood it. And that's just been explained to us. And I think that's why also that we are committee members in that role as opposed to trustees.
Yeah, and I think that my feeling
I think Michael
is that,
wants to come in, Graham.
Yeah, go on.
I confirm that the council is sole corporate trustee, and the way that the council manages that function is through the Alice Park Trust subcommittee, and that the way local government legislation works is that co-opted members on that committee cannot have a vote, and that's section 13 of the Local Government and Housing Act. And the issue in respect of a conflict, if there are conflicts between council policy and the trust's best interests, then the actual law permits a dispensation where otherwise the work of the subcommittee couldn't be progressed. And in that eventuality, I would be able to provide a dispensation so that the work of that subcommittee could proceed. So I hope that explains the legal position.
Yeah, I understand the legal position, but as I see it, well, unless two things, then I'd need to see, Michael, sort of how that dispensation mechanism works, because you know, looking at what Nia Jones said in her letter, she wasn't quite satisfied that it was working. So I think we need clarification on that, because as I said,
could I also make a point, Graham, that if you reflect back on decisions being made at the committee level on there, your views are taken on board, as will be the views of any additional independent members, because I think we're just about recruiting for a new one.
Yeah.
But it's important because that is the role, to bring that independent view into the decision making.
But I just, I'll be grateful for Michael if in fact he can make it clear how the dispensation will work in order to allow the subcommittee to function without in fact sort of getting involved in imposing sort of council policy on the trust, or with the best will, council members who have an interest actually having the sole say in it. That's where I feel there is an issue to be resolved. So anyway, we've exhausted that one, I think. The third one is responsibility of trustees. A couple of things. There are certain things that the trust document puts on the trustees, and some of them have sort of fallen by the wayside a bit. I think there is a concern coming through from various people in the area and various users of the park about the amount of land which is devolved exclusively for the use of children under 14. They feel that the area which in fact is devoted to children under 14 has been reduced from that which is outlined in the trust document, and it's come to me from several sources that
I know, got it.
The other thing is that there seems to be some issues that the trust need to deal with. Two of them you've met, Rob, by talking about accounting and putting the trust on a secure financial base. The two that, in fact, that I want to finish with are meeting the trust's obligations in respect of children, safeguarding. Bearing in mind that the skate park will introduce children or young people over the age of 14 into close proximity to the park, there is a question of safeguarding of children under 14 and making sure that areas that in fact are devoted to children are in fact actually secure from adults who are not with children coming into that particular area. I mean, I make it a point that in fact I stay completely out of that area. I've only ever been in it 3 times because of safeguarding issues. You don't want to see individual adults who are not connected with children moving in areas which in fact are
Right.
children's areas, if you know what I mean. So I think, from a point of view of safeguarding, I think that needs to be looked at.
Okay, can I just...
Rob, safeguarding is a very important issue, Graham. Thank you for raising it. Before I come to Rob, can I just ask Michael if you could just comment on what Graham's just said from the view of the trust and the overarching trust, and then I'll come back to Rob.
You're on mute, Michael.
You're on mute, Mike.
Sorry about that. My understanding of safeguarding is that you undertake the necessary checks in relation to people who come into contact with children. So those running certain functions in the park. But my understanding is that more generally, other than the health and safety requirements, there isn't some specific responsibility to police the people using the park. And I suspect that if there were concerns ever raised, that it would be important for the trust to involve the local police so that they would patrol more regularly in relation to the park. But I'm not aware that providing a park facility also comes with a legal obligation or duty to police that facility.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. Rob.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things I just want to cover off there, if I can, Paul. Firstly, about the space allocated to children or the use of the park. There hasn't been anything that I think that's happened in the park that's actually diminished that in any way. The skate park facility, although it takes up space, is actually designed for children. So it just repurposes that space in a slightly different way, and it adds another element to the enjoyment of the park. And where we think that's important is that previously families would attend the park, and if they had siblings there, maybe up to the age of 8 or 9, once they got past that age, there was little for them to actually engage with the park. By having something there for slightly older children, that means those family units can actually attend the park as a family unit and enjoy that connectivity there, everything like that. In terms of safeguarding, I think we have to be really careful as committee members to the park that we don't actually start setting hares running. If you have any specific elements where children are vulnerable, and bearing in mind it is an open space, we would expect children to be accompanied with adults. In most cases, they are. And as I think has been mentioned, should there be anything untoward happening, we notify the right authorities in terms of managing that situation. But I think we have to be very careful on what we're actually indicating that's happening. Now, unless you've got specifics, I think we should accept there is a responsibility of people to manage their own space on there and everything like this.
Well, I mean, we've had one incident earlier in the year, which was reported to me, and I passed that one incident on. But I mean, generally, it's not a problem. It's just that, in fact, for example, in certain local authorities where you've got a thing like a children's playground, they have signs up saying, you know, no adult is allowed in this area unless accompanied by a child under the age of X, say a number of local authorities. And
well, just put if you feel strongly about that, put that as a request to the committee.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to. And the last thing is, I think it's already been touched on that health and safety. That in fact we need some thought about health and safety issues. I mean, I've raised a couple. I mean, for example, drones in the park. We've had one accident with a drone being used in the park colliding with a child using the park, and it caused an altercation between the parents concerned.
How long ago was that then, Graham?
That would have been in May.
Okay, and did you report that to the committee?
I haven't had a chance because there hasn't been a meeting, has there?
No, but we do have technology like telephone.
Yeah, I know, but I thought, okay, it was an issue, but I wanted to bring it up because I think when we've got a notice board, we ought to have something that says, you know, what is permissible. Like, do we permit drones? Do we not permit drones? And that should be made clear in the regulations in the park. Similarly, we've got some high speed assisted sort of go-karts, scooters being used in the park, going round the perimeter track. And in fact, I timed one going at 20 kilometers an hour, and that seems to me to pose dangers to pedestrians and other. And again, I'm not saying we should go one way or the other, but I'm saying these sort of areas, there ought to be regulations. We ought to, as a committee, decide what uses we permit, what uses we don't permit. Barbecues is another issue. I mean, there are issues where, in fact, we ought to commit to these in the health and safety, make our own decisions on these, and make sure that, in fact, the park users know what is permitted in the park, what is not permitted in the park.
I think one of the
Rob, hang on a second. Graham, I think that's a really good set of points that you're raising to challenge it as there, and I think that's worth. The one I would like to add in before Rob comes in, the council has banned the launch of these. I've forgotten what they're called. These balloons that go up by air balloons that go up by little fires, because they can start fires all over the place. Wind lanterns or something. I've forgotten what the name is. And so the question before I come to Rob, does that still cover Alice Park, or do Alice Park have to come up with that regulation themselves, Michael? The banning the launching of these small lanterns, because It's also a cultural thing, because a lot of Indian families do it to celebrate various things. So but we've banned it because of the dangers it has for other buildings and things.
I think that's an issue which will only cover the corporately owned parks. So it doesn't cover Alice Park itself, because those decisions are for the council as sole trustee to take. And that would be my advice. If you've got specific issues you feel ought to be addressed, then the Alice Park Trust ought to address those and can't rely on corporate decisions of council in relation to its own parks.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got Rob, then Joe.
I think Joanna wants to come in first, Paul.
Okay, Joe, then Rob.
Hi, I just want to speak about e-scooters. So today we are launching an e-scooter trial in Bath and North East Somerset, which is going to be undertaken by a company called Voy. So the way that these e-scooters are launched is that they are geo-fenced. So for instance, at the moment, they are only allowed in the centre of Bath, and within the, say for instance, Royal Victoria Park, they're not allowed to be used. And if you actually enter the park with one of them, they will just stop working. You have to push them along. So in terms of e-scooter use, we will certainly be able to introduce that geofencing within the park. If you have bought an e-scooter legally, you can, and you can legally use one in private land if you want to. So we can't stop everybody's use of all kinds of equipment. And I would also raise the issue that there are an awful lot of disabled and vulnerable users that might enter the park on mobility scooters. So it's like, where do we draw the line on some of those vulnerable users? So that therefore I have questions just about making this a sort of blanket ban. And I would think that we need to give this more thought and consideration, and maybe this is not the right place to do this.
Okay, Rob. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I mean, the right place to bring them up is actually at the committee, because they are delegated to make those sort of decisions and everything like this. But what I will caveat is that it is a recreational park. Yes, we have to be mindful of safety and things like that. But one of the beauties of Alice Park is it's got a fantastic reputation for being a family attraction, a family park. Which allows a whole range of activities, and we've got to be mindful not to stifle that perception and activity. So make the request to bring it to the committee, Graham, in some sort of coherent way. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's important that the points that have just been raised are addressed at the next committee meeting if we can. So if that could be put on the agenda and then reported back to the next group meeting of this group, that'd be grateful. I've got Graham wants to speak again. Graham, unmute yourself, please. Unmute yourself.
I didn't want to speak about specifics because I just gave it as a couple of examples, but because I think we need to go into a lot of this very, very thoroughly. It was just the principle that I wanted to raise, and in fact, what Mike said in the course of what his contribution was that in fact these are things that in fact the trust should decide. Paul made the point about the hot air balloons that in fact are released, and the council has a policy on those. All I'm saying is whether we agree with what the council do or whether we don't, we as or the trustees should in fact have a position on all these issues, and in fact the trust then should make it clear to all users of the park those conditions, because in fact the trust document does in fact say that in fact access to the park is based on terms and times that the trustees determine.
I think you're right.
That's all I want to say on it.
We do need to address issues of hot air elements, yes.
But as I say,
Okay.
it's the general principle I was involved in.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've spoken my piece now.
Right. Okay. I'd like to propose that we thank and note Graham for his report, and that the outcome of that is that we've noticed his report, but also that we've asked the Alice Park trustees to put an item on their next agenda to look at the health and safety issues of things like drones, barbecues, and lanterns, and decide what their policy is. Is that agreed by everyone?
Could
Very
I
happy
just,
with that.
Yeah,
could I
Paul.
just make a point there? I know you didn't mean to say it, but you described us as trustees, but we were just told we weren't. So
Oh,
it's just
sorry.
members. I've not been picky, but if it gets minutes, we'll be back round again. So,
Right. Okay.
and can I also clarify that earlier on, Graham, don't take this the wrong way, but you were going to vote, but then you didn't because you weren't at the meeting, when actually we did hear that you weren't allowed to vote, I don't think. But could Officer Hewitt just confirm that? Because I didn't want to invalidate our votes. So, and please don't take it the wrong way, Graham.
No, of course not, Paul.
I don't think, in a sense, I think everyone's entitled to voice an opinion and therefore to actually vote in a sense. But the ones that count are only those who are actual members of the committee appointed by the Charitable Trust Board, who aren't co-opted members. So from that perspective, I wouldn't want to deny anyone the right to vote on any issue, because it doesn't invalidate the decision. But the one or the elements of the parties voting, it's only the council representatives who are counted in that sense.
Okay. Thanks very much for raising that, Paul. Right. Future meetings. The next one will have to be a Zoom, I'm pretty sure. I don't think this COVID is going away any time by January or February. Would people prefer the 27th of January or the 3rd of February?
Sorry, can I just come in there? Can I check with Marie when the Alice Park Trust will do its annual report to the Charitable Trust Board?
I think the plan would be to bring it to the next meeting, so the January or February meeting. So it could be considered, I think, at the December meeting of the Alice Park Trust, and then on to January if members are happy with that.
Yeah. Yeah, Graham.
I just think if we're going to do it in the way that the prescribed way, that in fact we're going to write a report. And believe me, this year we've got things to write about in many directions, and it's great that we have, and that we've got to put a set of accounts together for the financial year. January seems to be a bit tight to get all our ducks in a line if we're going to do this and get this ready for the Charitable Trust Board. So February might be a better time to just.
I'm quite happy to support that proposal. So next meeting on a Zoom, February the 3rd. Is everyone happy with that? Right. And what I would like to propose, and this might be hopelessly optimistic, how would everyone feel if the July meeting we actually held at Alice Park, if subject to COVID, and it's not going to be, it doesn't have to be Zoom again. If it is possible, how would people feel about having a meeting at Alice Park for the July one? What do people think on that? I can't hear you, Graham.
I mean, I understand. Are you talking about the Charitable Trust Board meeting?
Yeah,
Paul?
Charitable Trust, and then we can go around and see all the facilities as well as part of the meeting.
I suppose I would come in there just to ask: is there a venue that it can be held at within the park?
Yeah, I think the community garden have their sort of gazebo there. I would have thought we could adapt that and use that as a facility. I don't know what Joanna thinks.
Paul Myers?
Well, I fully commend the idea of a visit, but I do wonder if, like, I would prefer to go there on a visit, like we go out on planning visits, once a year and things. I would rather we went with the purpose of visiting it and then had the meeting in the best possible way around an actual table and sort of, I don't know, to me, I always worry about, I love the sentiment and celebrate it, but it just feels like, yes, we're going out there. If we're going out to see it, why don't we just go and see it and then report back?
Yeah, I agree with you, Paul.
And the public, I always think of, maybe I shouldn't quote her, but Councillor Eleanor Jackson, people who come to meetings who don't have transport, and maybe they don't want to, but it could be the one time. And if you have it physically in the centre at the Guildhall or on Zoom, then it's more accessible for people who can't. But in no way do I wish to denigrate the suggestion, because I know it was with the best possible intention.
Okay, no, that's perfectly valid. Marie, could you perhaps put in your forward plan a visit for the Charitable Trust Board in late June?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll put something in the diary for late June. I'll consult with everyone about suitable dates and times.
Okay, Rob.
Paul, if I can, I mean, although it hasn't been discussed and finalised, but I suspect there might be some activity around the skate park official opening, maybe next year sometime. So maybe that's an opportunity for the Charitable Trust Board to attend there and see that at the same time. And obviously dates need to be affected, but I mean, that could be March, April time.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with that suggestion. I think that would be very good. Yeah. So if you can liaise with Marie on your opening dates, and then she can come back to the rest of us.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to set the actual date for the July meeting. We could set that at our next meeting. So we've agreed that the next meeting is Wednesday, the 3rd of February, which will be a Zoom meeting. And we will look to have a visit of this body either at the opening of the skateboard park or at some point before the July meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone got any final words they want to say before we close the meeting? Okay, thank you very much for everyone attending, and I will see you in February, if not before, in Alice Park having a cup of coffee. Okay, bye.